just give everyone 5 minutes or so to tune in. As I know there were quite a few more people who joined, but so great to see so many people. Thank you for joining us today. Come across me before. I'm very lucky to be joined here with Pete. But yeah, we'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to join us. I hope you can hear everything okay. Do give us a message if you can't hear. I'll be monitoring the chat box if everyone has anything that they should start, and then as welcome to jump on screen, turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and tell us a bit about your brand, and ask any questions. He is the ultimate branding guru, so if you have any questions, make them hard, and get as much information out of him as you possibly can. Cool. Okay, a few more people joining us now. How's everyone doing? We'll just give it until about 5 past, and then we can start going into our first kind of introductory conversation, where we'll just talk a bit around the concepts of today's webinar. And then I don't know if anyone who's here already wants to introduce themselves, either via chat, or if you want to jump on and tell us a bit about who you are, feel free to do so. No pressure. Hi. Yeah, plenty of time for everyone to chat towards the end. We'll probably just be doing 20-minute kind of conversation to start with, and then plenty of time to get to learn more about each other, which is great.
Okay, I can just introduce myself shortly, like
Yeah,
short. I'm Christine, and I make sustainable jewelry. I'm self-taught, and both in making jewelry and the business side of it. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
No worries.
And thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks. I thought it was a good opportunity to learn something.
Yeah, no, well, that's what we're all about. So this all is part of our Accelerator program, which is to provide brands like yourselves with important information and connections, how to get started and scale your business. So if there's anything that you guys ever want to see or hear from the Accelerator, then just let us know. We've got a lot of different events and things coming up, so definitely make sure that you kind of tune in for that. We'll be talking about, you know, sales and going digital and all of these things, so keep your eyes peeled on our newsletter, which everyone should be receiving, having signed up to this. I've got a message here from Paula saying, hello, apologies for the lack of video. I'm a textile designer / mixed media artist based in Derbyshire, thrilled to attend this webinar. Well, we're thrilled to have you. Cool, a couple more people joining. If anyone else wants to introduce themselves, please go ahead.
Hello.
I also hope everyone. Hi Lily, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Sorry, I've just run from the gym. I was like, no one needs to see this. So my name's.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, oh, thank you. I was like, I've literally just stopped sweating. It's so hot today as well. But yes, I am launching a women's wear brand in spring next year that's going to be focused on geometric printed women's dresses in natural fabrics and kind of classic wearable shapes. So you can see, if you've met me before, I've already improved my idea of what I'm doing thanks to the accelerator. So thank you guys.
Fantastic. Oh, perfect. Well, we're so happy to hear that and happy to have you here today. So I think we should go ahead and make a start. Just going to jump in with a quick 20-minute discussion around kind of your brand personality and why it's important, and talk a bit more about Pete and his experiences. I hope everyone can hear me okay. It keeps saying my connection's unstable, so do let me know if I am of bad quality and I will try and do something about it. But otherwise, let's just dive straight in. So, Pete, as our star attraction, could you please start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your background?
Yes, absolutely. And just to check that everyone can hear me okay? Yeah, all the few little nods, good, excellent. Okay, well, I've got to live up to what Amanda's just said about me now, which I'll try and do sort of vaguely. So I am a creative director and brand consultant, and I've been working in various roles in marketing and creative agencies for my whole career. I actually started off as a marketing manager in the art world. I worked for Tate Modern and the Whitechapel Gallery and places like that. Then I did a little bit of work in video games, and then I moved into agencies and worked on everything from food and drink to hospitality to professional services to sport, all sorts of different things. And then eventually I decided to start my own thing and set up my own little micro agency, as I call it, which is a very fancy way of saying it's just me and my freelance friends who I bring into different projects. And what I do now is advertising, branding, and content. About half of my clients are in fashion, and specifically ethical fashion. Not all of them are specifically ethical, but most of them by number are. And the other half are, again, a range of different things, generally progressive types of companies. So some startup tech companies, organizations like London Sport, who are a kind of an umbrella organization for sporting organizations and coaching organizations in the capital. So quite a wide range still, but I have ended up with this kind of niche and all enjoyable little area that I work in, which is sustainable fashion. In fashion, again, it's a range from startups and very, very small companies to companies like Beulah, who are an ethical luxury women's occasion wear brand from Chelsea, and the London College of Fashion, High Snobiety, I don't know if you know them. So quite a range. And my kind of I see my main job as a creative director it's not about the kind of technical side of marketing or the kind of not even really the strategic side in terms of what are the best channels to use, how much money should you put where. It's much more about the narrative that you're putting out as a brand, how you want to be seen by your audience, how you want to come across, and the creative tools that you have at your disposal to make sure that you stay true to that. So whether that's through campaigns or whether that's through copywriting or photo shoots or design, all these different things, these creative things that build a picture of who you are. That's basically who I am and what I work on.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that. What a great introduction. Super informative. Thank you. And very impressive, I might add, as well. So you mentioned that you are a brand consultant, which is something that I know a lot of brands out there on the look for, but don't really understand exactly what it means to be a brand consultant or what kind of support that you can offer. So could you just tell us a bit about how you help brands, what do you do with them, and what does it actually mean when you consult someone?
Sure. So the work that I do with my little company is basically split into two halves. One is the kind of creative half where I actually produce things like video shoots or advertising designs or brand visuals for people. The other half is the kind of the bit that comes before that, really, which is that a lot of the companies I work with, before they even can decide what kind of thing they want to put out there as advertising or content, are just struggling with who they are and how they want to come across. So as a brand consultant, the kind of the more consultative side of what I do is help people figure things out about themselves, about their brand, about their appeal, about their positioning, and kind of help them articulate that and kind of get it down on paper and make it really crystal clear in their minds. And what that does is it helps everybody make decisions about all of the other creative stuff a lot more easily. So for example, every creative decision you make about your marketing, from the models that you cast to the typography that you use to, I mean, I even say what biscuits you serve at a meeting. I mean, well, that's in the olden days, you know, whatever it is that people do now, what Zoom background you have, all of those things are part of your brand. And all of those creative decisions, you can either agonize over them and, you know, every single time a decision comes along, try and figure it out and not quite know. And is it coherent? Is it going in the right direction? Why am I making this decision? What criteria would I use to make these decisions? What criteria would I use to brief a creative director and a photographer and all these things? Or you can figure it out beforehand. And that's what this brand consultancy bit does, is it basically helps people just get it clear in their mind and get it, like I say, articulated, codified, so that they can then make those decisions a lot more easily. And I think that it's something that is, you know, a lot of people come to me and they basically say, listen, I'm not a marketing, you know, they say to me, I'm not a marketing person. I'm great at designing fashion. I make these, I love the stuff I make, but I don't really know how to decide about what should the website look like and what should go on my Instagram and all these kinds of things. And sometimes what's happened is that someone has designed a brand for them. Sometimes they've designed their own logo or things like that. Sometimes they have a set of brand guidelines and color palettes and things that they use. But the thing that is often missing from those brand guidelines is the thing that should go right at the start. And I say, if your brand guidelines, if you have brand guidelines, if page one says, here's our logo, this is what our logo looks like, then I say something's wrong, because page one should say, this is what we believe in. This is what we're all about. This is our attitude. This is our spirit. This is how we see the world. And then everything like your logo and your color palette and your photography and all that stuff should come out of that initial idea. So the brand consultant bit is about helping people figure out that initial idea that everything else then hangs off. And I think the one thing I'd say is that for fashion companies and for fashion designers, it can seem a bit weird, because actually it might seem that everything should come from your creative instincts and your creative aesthetic and your fashion design concepts. And it can be a bit weird to get your head around that stuff, because it sounds like the kind of thing that, you know, a car brand would do, not a fashion brand. But in my experience, as it turns out, actually the same thinking applies to all kinds of companies.
Fantastic, yeah. And so a bit about like current situation with the pandemic and how important brand personality can be in terms of connecting with people and really getting, you know, your brand out there, but also conveying exactly what your message is. Has this kind of like changed? Is there more that can be done now with, you know, not being able to meet face to face so much?
Yeah, I think that it's something which actually, in a weird way, has kind of come more into focus, because people aren't able to just, you know, run the same marketing activities that they always have. There's a lot, you know, ever increasing pressure on the kind of the digital platforms that people are using. So because everyone is now focusing more on that, that means that people have even less attention than they did before, because, you know, everyone's competing for that same space. So I think that it's really important to think about that from that point of view. The other point of view I think it's important to think about all of this is, I wrote an article about this, which I posted on LinkedIn, which if you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll find it there, which is I basically said this was during lockdown that I wrote this, during like the proper lockdown. I basically said, I think that any company who is trying to treat their customers how they were trying to a year ago is going to be in trouble, because you cannot expect people to respond in the same way that they did before. And that's about their purchasing behavior. That's about their relationship to brands and what they need from brands. That's about what they need from the world right now. And I said a few things, like, for example, a lot of brands have kind of fake purpose. They talk about purpose, but they don't really live up to it. And actually, you know, now more than ever, that's just being exposed. And if you're saying stuff which really isn't a core part of who you are, people are going to see through it more and more. And I think that's really important to remember. And I also said that I think there's a really huge thing, which is that everybody is having to, just as a consumer of any industry, we're all just kind of revisiting like what is actually important to us and what we need in our lives to make us happy. And if you just try and push products at people and products and price and that kind of thing, again, you're going to miss a huge thing, which is the way that people are redefining their lives and what they need in their homes and what they wear and why they wear what they wear. And, you know, even just with fashion, just the very nature of, like, you know, are we dressing for the office? Are we dressing for ourselves? You know, are we, when we're at home, is it just a place we sleep? Are we creating this world around us? All of this stuff there's so many new things to think about psychologically. And my belief is that your brand and your appeal in an emotional sense has just got a huge potential impact and resonance with people who are redefining their lives in that way. One of the ways in which I kind of put a bit of a point on this for ethical brands, and forgive me if anyone sort of disagrees with this. By the way, if anyone disagrees with something I'm saying, feel free to throw something at your camera or put something in the chat and tell me you think I'm an idiot. But one of the things which I say to ethical brands specifically is, your ethics aren't enough. And a lot of people, and forgive me again if people have these on their own websites, a lot of ethical fashion brands on their websites, there's a picture on the front of something and it says, we reduce carbon emissions by 50%. And that's the first thing it says. And then there's a list of statistics about the ethical things. And despite those things being incredibly important, and me being, you know, trying to be an ethical consumer as much as I can as well personally, the fact is that statistics and facts and figures and things like that just don't resonate with people. And I mean, we're seeing how insane the world is in many ways, you know, at the moment. What resonates with people is the emotional connection you can make to them. And so specifically for ethical brands, and specifically for now, I think it's really important to make sure you understand not your practical appeal, but your emotional appeal to people and the way that you can help them build their little world for themselves. Sorry, that's a very long answer, but hopefully that was vaguely interesting.
No, we want all the information we can. I have questions that they can ask after this, so make sure everyone has their questions at the ready. We should really be utilizing to actually connect with customers, because I know previously, you know, a lot of people were trying to connect through wholesale, or maybe making sales was the whole point. But now we've got a lot of different new platforms like TikTok, or even just direct emailing. Like, what are the platforms that we should be looking at? What's got the most value?
Yeah. So the way I would answer this question for this group is probably slightly different to how I would answer it for a room of, you know, enormous companies. And so I'm going to approach it from a sort of a weirdly practical point of view for a creative director. If you are a one-person company, or, you know, one-person outfit, or even a two-person outfit, the main constraint that you have is actually time, even more so than money, I would say. And it can be very easy to just have all of your time absorbed by trying to, you know, I mean, you can get sucked into social media, and it can take an enormous amount of your time very, very quickly. And if you're trying to do every different channel on social media, and for example, TikTok has come along, it's the new big thing. Does it make sense to jump on it and spend a lot of time on it because some people are getting a lot of success out of it? I think that my answer is you have to dip your toes in things and see what is giving you the right results or giving you the most traction. There is no sort of blanket answer. I mean, well, the blanket answer is spend loads of money on everything and something will work, right? That's what I'm saying is if you're a huge company with loads of money, just spend money on everything and you'll be fine. But if you're not, and you don't have that much time and you don't have that much, that much resources, I personally say, don't jump on the new thing just because it's there. Go with the things that you know are working for you and you can see return on investment in. So for example, if you've been using Instagram a lot and you have invested a little bit of money in Instagram advertising and you can see that you're getting traffic and results through that, I don't see any reason to stop doing that because something else that's new has come along. Taking a slightly different angle on it, really, so when I worked in video games, my job was actually online advertising and specifically online advertising. And one of the things that we used to say was everything is testing. There is no right and wrong with digital. It's all about testing. And more specifically, I would say it's testing and understanding your audience. I don't know your audiences. I don't know who they are, the people you're trying to contact. I don't know how they respond to things, but you do. And the more you can get comfortable with that, and the more you can kind of learn from that and respond to that, the better. Don't get marketing paralysis. Don't do that thing where people are so scared of making the wrong decision or doing something wrong that you don't do anything. You have to test, you have to try things and look at the results like a marketer and say, okay, well, that didn't work, but that did, so I'll do more of that. And not see it as a failure, see it as a success that you've learned something. I think that platforms where you can get a more direct and a deeper but less lower volume of connection with people, I think are really good. And I think email has still got a lot going for it. Building out your own personal email, CRM database of people who really, really like you. On Instagram, it's so easy just to click follow or to click like or whatever and actually not really care. But for someone to actually sign up to your email list is quite a big deal. Like it's actually quite even though it doesn't take that long, it's more effort, it's more kind of cognitive effort, it's more emotional effort. So I think that's, some of the older things are actually still very, very good to do. And the only other thing I'd say is probably just being, knowing that social media also, a lot of it is about a bit of spend and about a bit of money. And I think the days of just growing organically on a platform, I mean, exponentially organically on a platform like Instagram are probably over. There's a lot of people who think, if I just start posting stuff on social media, I'll end up with 10,000 followers, and it's just not really like that anymore. You will get followers, and regularity of posting is really good, but unfortunately, they are geared to get you to spend on them now, and so understanding a little bit about that probably helps.
Amazing, cool. And you kind of touched on it briefly, but I think mentioning kind of like money and branding and marketing, obviously you can spend a lot of money on doing Google ads, Facebook ads, try and see some traction. There is kind of the point around your brand personality. Is it marketing value or is it in order to make sales? So I think obviously we'd all love to be making hundreds of sales every day. But can you really do that without, finding the foundations of having a meaningful brand? Right, yeah, exactly. It's a great question. So some people, I think, will think of branding as a kind of a more frivolous thing because it's not directly related to, am I making a sale right now? The truth is everything is about sales. If you don't have customers, if you don't have sales, then you don't have a business. So it has to be about sales. And I've worked with very big companies who start down the process of pitching for a brand,
redevelopment, and then eventually get cold feet and say, oh no, we don't need to do that. We're just going to focus on, you know, putting money into marketing right now and doing advertising. And it's a kind of false economy, because anything that you do in the moment adds up over the course of the year to a long-term, you know, a long-term destination. So if you haven't figured out what your brand is and all you're doing is pumping out messages saying, you know, great clothes, half price, or whatever it might be, that's the picture you're creating for people of yourselves. You might think I'm only doing this right now, but that is the picture you're building. So in my opinion, you need to do both. You need to figure out who you are, why you exist, how you want to come across. You need to then use that as the basis for that advertising plan and that marketing plan and that sales plan and all those different things that you're doing, and use it to inform all your decisions so that you know the direction you're going in and people understand you for that thing. You know, working on your brand, you know, it can take, it can take a couple of weeks, it can take a couple of months, but it's time well spent. Whether, by the way, I'm not saying this is a kind of, obviously I have a vested interest in this kind of thing, but I'm not saying, for me, whether you do it with a brand consultant or an agency, or whether you just do it by yourself, and you just spend the time yourself really thinking about why you exist and why anyone should care, you know, and really getting into the mindset of your audience and understanding how your emotional appeal comes across, that is time well spent, however you actually do it.
Amazing, cool. Well, I think that is super important to consider pretty much in everything that we do as, you know, startup brands. But now I think that was kind of our introductory conversation. Now it would be great to kind of hand over to some of you guys. If you have any questions about anything, then tell us a bit about your brand, any questions or issues that you are having. Then Pete is here to give you any feedback that you might have, any questions around maybe your Instagram, how often you post, how do you set up a newsletter database, all of those sorts of things. If anything springs to anyone's mind, now's your chance. Yeah. Does anyone want to jump on first, or we can...
I actually have a question in regards to website. Do you recommend spending money on someone who knows a lot about SEO?
Ooh, great question. That's a really good question. Okay, unfortunately, the answer to a lot of these questions will probably be it depends.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what it depends on. So I would say that it is worthwhile thinking about SEO, but if you're in a very competitive space, then you would have to do quite a lot to get to the top of the rankings. So let me just give you a personal example about this, because I like I said, I run a micro company, I run a one-person company, right? So I'm in a similar position to a lot of people here. If I try to invest money in SEO in order to try and rise up the rankings for creative agency or branding agency, it'd just be a waste of money, because there are hundreds of much richer companies than me doing the same thing with much better SEO people who are going to just always beat me. On the other hand, there are terms like, because I run such a tiny company, it's actually quite unusual. So there aren't that many one-person marketing agencies going around. So I call what I do a boutique agency. And I actually rank relatively well for boutique brand agency. And I have packed my website with boutique, branding, that kind of thing. And it seems to have worked reasonably well. But that's quite a specific thing. So basically, the reason I say it depends is if what you're working on has something so specific about it, like let's say you're working with a specific material, and there was a lady I was speaking to a while ago who was working with Pinatex, which is the pineapple leather stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so, for example, if you're using material like that and you're making jackets out of pineapple leather, absolutely go on the SEO, because that's something you can rank for. I mean, that's not something a lot of people are going to be competing for. But if you're going for ethical fashion or ethical jewelry, personally, I don't think I would try and make my Google ranking for that term my main target, just because it's going to be so hard to get there. Doesn't mean you shouldn't spend time thinking about the SEO and how good it is on your website. I would just say I wouldn't necessarily consider it a major area of spend or a major priority for your marketing planning to try and get lots of organic search as the main way of getting traffic to your website through that specific term. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. So, well, would you then, in case, I mean, I worked on my own SEO and it went well, but then it's sort of, I think you have to continue working on it.
Yeah.
Because then my rank got poorer. It went okay, and then I got back again. But do you then recommend finding some good words which fits your brand, but also maybe is more niche?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so finding the right words.
Yeah. But really what I'm saying is it's not it's the right thinking about whether what you're working in actually verbally is unique enough for it to be worth targeting that as a key marketing channel. So if you, like I say, if you're working with a specific material or a specific process that people are likely to Google, then absolutely, then maintain that. If what you're making is less specific but still wonderful, then there are other things that I think I would target more. I wouldn't recommend to anybody on this call to try and rank highly for ethical fashion or sustainable fashion or anything like that. I just don't think it's gonna, I think it's gonna be too hard to do that. To your exact situation, there could be so many reasons why you've fallen down the rankings. It could be a change in the Google algorithm. And that's what those SEO guys are great at, is they'll tell you what the changes are that mean that you need to do things about. It could be someone else has just spent a load of money on this and they have more money than you. And you know, tough luck, that's really hard to deal with. It could be that whatever you're trying to rank for, other people are putting out more content about, because as I understand it, Google really appreciates new original content and lots of articles and lots of blogs. And it could be someone else has just is doing a blog every week about the same thing, and you aren't able to sustain that even if your website is packed with keywords. So sorry, it's a hard question to answer, and there's a lot of little things, but my guess would be that it wouldn't be the thing that I would say to you, hire an SEO expert right now. I would probably consider a range of other things to try and get traffic coming in, rather than relying on people searching for something quite broad and landing on your site.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay,
so
great.
I've got a, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, please, I was just say thank you for that great question, and thank you, Pete, for your feedback. Is that Joe? Would you like to go next if you want to tell us a bit about your brand and tell us what your question is?
Yeah, so I'm working on an apparel brand. It's quite a performance-oriented apparel brand for physical, like, stunt performers. My question is more around trends that you're seeing in the market, emerging, like branding trends, either visual or tone of voice, and just kind of the shifts you're seeing kind of in this post-COVID world.
Yeah, great question. So I would say that I think the only really significant thing post-COVID is that some brands some big companies have just decided, you know what, this world is not in great shape, and we are going to be on the right side of history, and we are going to commit 1,000% to doing good, even if it loses us customers. So Ben and Jerry's and people like that, you know, they're just absolutely committing to purpose-led, ethical choices in the way that they're behaving. How that translates into fashion and smaller companies, I think you're seeing that as well with in the fashion world. There's a lot more people just committing to that. In terms of visual branding, I wouldn't say I'm seeing much in terms of trends because of COVID, but what I think is probably happening in what I would say is happening in performance, and well, I mean more in sort of sport actually, is that things are the kind of the lines between fashion, culture, sport, music, different things are all becoming a lot more blurred, which means that companies, fashion brands, for example, I think are just getting a bit more connected to culture rather than just saying we are a brand in ourselves. So when it comes to things like logo design or photo shoots or things like that, I think you're seeing a lot more kind of cross-pollination between all of the interesting and fun and cool stuff in the world. So, you know, fashion brands bringing in, you know, collaborating with music and with sport and with art, and just kind of like merging all of that together as part of a brand. And I think that's a great way to go. I think that's a really important thing to remember. Again, like I keep saying, I think that it's critical for ethical brands to remember that your appeal, your emotional appeal, is more important than your practical appeal. So while your product will have very good practical benefits and will be a great product, if you miss that emotional side of things and that cultural side of things and that connection to people's vision of who they are and their identity, then there's an issue there.
Perfect, cool, thank you. Jo, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it was interesting to kind of hear you talk about just that fusion of like music, culture, kind of all coming and kind of joining up with aspects of fashion. Because I've definitely seen some of that myself, and I think it's changed a lot about how I think about branding. Because it's no longer, like, I agree with what you said at the beginning about things being very much about the customer identity, but then you also got to like consider how you fit in with the broader kind of zeitgeist a lot more, I think.
Yes, yeah, and like I mean, I always say, you know, your brand is not your logo. You know, your logo is a tiny part of your brand, and all of the photo shoots you do, and like I said, all the models that you cast, whether, you know, what music track do you put if you're doing a lookbook video, like all of these things have a connection to culture and have a connection to the audience and have a connection to you, and it's just finding that sort of place in between all of them. I think it's really interesting, for example, to look at football shirts. I mean, I'm obsessed with football shirts anyway, but interestingly, just literally over the last sort of 1 or 2 years, there's been this moment where they've realized it's not just a garment to do sport in, it's a whole, you know, it's a fashion piece, it's an artistic piece, it's a creative piece, it's a cultural piece, and just how they blended all those things together. They've learned from streetwear, and how streetwear has become, again, not just about fashion, but about music and culture and all these different things as well. So yeah, that blend and that blur, I think, is really important to think about.
Amazing, thank you so much. Great. Lots of people who have questions now, which is perfect. So next up we have Lily, if you'd like to tell us a bit more about your question.
Right, so it's not a very well formulated question. It's basically about email marketing in general. I know that it's super important to be doing. It's actually how I do most of my shopping. I get an email from a brand I like and I'm like, oh, click, thanks. And it's over before I've even noticed it. But I'm wondering, sort of, how do you build up the list? How do you sort of, so most of my referrals to my website come from Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of advert do I run? What kind of spend do I put behind it? How long does it go for? Like, how do I, is that the way to get people to sign up to your newsletter? Like, what is the... Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good. So great question. And I mean, to be honest, I mean, that is the question, right? And there is a famous phrase, which is that half of all marketing money is wasted, but nobody knows which half. And unfortunately, that kind of is true here as well, which is that now we can attribute spend to a lot of things. So you can spend money on Instagram, You can see that it's gone through to your landing page. You can see how many people have signed up to your landing page, and you can almost directly attribute, I spent £500 and I got 10 email newsletter signups or whatever it is, and I can literally see that cost per sign up. However, one of the big lies about digital marketing and about marketing in general is that you can't actually attribute it like that, because you don't know how many times somebody saw your posts, how long they've been following you before they clicked on that advert. You don't know how many times their friend who they really trust has walked past them wearing one of your pieces. You don't know how many times, do you know what I mean? There's so many things, which means that you can't actually attribute it. So again, I know this is a bit, this kind of goes back to my previous thing where I said, I'm sorry, this is a bit of a disappointing answer, but the only way of figuring out is testing a bunch of stuff, analyzing it like a sort of a businessy type person, and basically making decisions off of the data that you've got. So if you're looking at, you know, how much money should you spend? I mean, the unfortunate answer is as much as you can afford to, and probably more than that if you had backing and someone gave you more money. You know, all these companies that grow and everyone's jealous of, and like, wow, what a great success story, probably got a massive angel investment chunk of money and then spent it all on marketing, and that's how they grew. And it's not because anyone's a genius, it's just because they spent a bunch of money on it. But basically, just in terms of the kind of the common sense marketing basics, I would say are, from everything that I hear, the social media companies want you to post regularly, and almost the more you post, the better, from their point of view. In terms of just into being present, being regular, you know, getting out there. So definitely regularity is important. Focusing in on your brand and thinking, why am I posting this? What appeal does that have? What do people think of me when I post this? Is it getting a reaction? And just fine tuning the stuff that people love seeing from you. Again, you do get that data. You know, what do people like? What do people do there? And focusing on that and trying to make intelligent decisions from that. Spending where you can and testing the spend, and not just doing one advert, but split testing things and trying different things and learning what you can like that. Copying people who are successful, and you know, brands that we don't
know how many email subscribers a brand has, so I don't know if I'm the only person getting these emails that I like, or do you know what I mean?
Okay, that's true. But what you do know is what was the last Instagram advert you clicked on and why, and just being a little bit more present when you're doing that and saying, okay, let me try and just break it down. Like I say, I keep using this phrase. I use this phrase a lot in marketing: advanced common sense. So I'm not some sort of genius at this by any means. It's just a case of saying, okay, this is the only thing that I do, so I can focus on it, right? Whereas you guys have all got a million things to do. But if this is on your mind, be sort of present, focus on it, and say, okay, so what is it about that that's working? What is it about that I think might be worth testing? And build a sort of a hypothesis and test it. And that's really the only way to do it. I can't say, look, if you post 5 times a week, you run an advert at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, which has this or like the other, then it's going to get more clicks. But I would say that the more you test, the more you optimize, it should help you. I have also had personal experience that annoying and unfortunate personal experience that you can post a whole load of stuff and then you put a little bit of money into it and you just see it go like that. And it's infuriating that it should be like that. But I mean, listen, these companies social media companies are businesses who are designed to extract that money from you. So it's kind of obvious in a way that that's what they want you to do. The only other thing is just in terms of copying is just checking out what people do in terms of like, do they run competitions to get people to sign up to their newsletter? Do they do these things called like member get member, where you say to your subscribers, get someone else to sign up and you'll get a 20% discount? Are there things like that you know, some people find that stuff really corny, and that's fair enough. Some people say, I don't care, I want subscribers. So, I mean, unfortunately what it boils down to is do a lot of stuff and then do some more and then see and basically see what works.
Yeah, and start with what I think I would do and what I've seen other brands I like doing. Like of all the millions of things you could do, like start there and then work out. Okay.
Well, what else can you do? And I mean, like I say, you can.
I don't know.
Exactly. You can work with someone like me or like a you know, just a marketing freelancer or a social media freelancer, just to say, look, this is what I've tried.
Yeah.
What other ideas have you got? I can reel off a bunch of random ideas right now. Like I just have. I mean, I could, you can piggyback on other people's emails. You can do social media takeovers and swap with other people. You can do Follow Friday and all this kind of. There's also, I could suggest a million things.
Yeah.
I don't actually know whether they'll work for you. But what I do know is that you've just got to keep, either yourself or with external help, just keep coming up with stuff, trying it and learning from it.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your question, Lily. That was really insightful. I think just generally, so thanks for that information. Next, we have a question from Unraveling. Is that,
Yes.
if I'm saying that right? Over to you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Amanda, and thank you very much, Pete, for all the information you have given so far already. My name is Laura, and I'm the founder of Unravelove, and it's a high-end Dutch sustainable fashion brand. And my goal is to unravel the fashion and only remain the good parts. And therefore, I do not only produce ethical products, but I also give a lot of information about the negative sides of fashion and show people what they can do. But you were talking about like that example with the carbon footprint and that it's not really like connecting with the customers. So I wonder what I can do to create more of that emotional bond with them instead of being their teacher.
Okay, great question. And just one thing I'll say is, I don't think that you should not talk about the practical stuff. I don't think you should stop that. I just think you have to do it in a way that makes people feel excited, right? So there's two parts to answering your question. One is, how do you figure out your emotional appeal? What could your emotional appeal be? Now, for me, that's about thinking about your passion and your energy, not your intelligence, because that's great, you've got that. But what is it that excites you and fires you up and keeps you going? And you know, what's your spirit? You know, that kind of thing. Because it turns out that's what people really get excited by. And then if you can figure that out, then you can communicate your message better. How do you communicate that message once you figure that out? To me, it's about saying, deconstructing every element of your marketing and looking at every tiny piece of it. So an advertising campaign, for example, is a photo usually and a line of text and basically that's it, right? But within that line of text, you've got all of the different verbs, all of the different adjectives, the little tiny nuances of whether you're, you know, what punctuation you're using, like all these tiny things make a huge difference. In the photo, again, deconstruct that. What's the location? Who are the models? How their hairstyle? It's not just about whether it looks good, it's about what is the story it's telling, what's the emotion it's conveying. So, so for example, a company that was just, there are lots of, I mean, I follow lots of fashion and ethical fashion things on Instagram, and there are lots of companies that just put out, there's that classic photo now of all of the clothes piled up in a, in like a, going to landfill, all of the old clothes, which are, look how many clothes we waste every year.
Yeah.
Fine, great, yes, I get it. That's a really important thing to say. And that, and I look at that and go, oh God, that's awful. But do I do anything? That's the question. Do I actually do anything? So alongside that, I'd be saying, you want to build a picture for people of, if you participate in what we're trying to tell you, here's the world that you're a part of. And it's cool and it's exciting and it's energetic and it's fun, or it's prestigious and it's luxurious and it's you know, it's the world you've always wanted to belong to. It's aspirational, but it's ethical. Those things don't have to be separate. In fact, they shouldn't be separate. I'm not saying it has to be luxury. It can be all sorts of things. It can be very down to earth. It can be very you know, hippie-ish and Mother Earth-ish, if that's your vibe as well. But you need to build a picture for people through these photo shoots, through the behind-the-scenes shots, through the videos that you do to camera, where it's not just, here are the facts. It's, this is the world I want you to be a part of. I want to bring you into. You know, I love ethical fashion brands that are a bit dangerous and a bit edgy. I love ethical fashion brands who are super creative, and there's lots of really unusual styling going on, and there's face paint on the models and things like that, or really severe haircuts and things. I love ethical fashion brands who, you know, so for example, I worked with Beulah. I mentioned Beulah before, who you may know. Kate Middleton wears their dresses, right? So if you go on the Beulah website, what you don't get is, what I encouraged them to do was to not just to say, they work a lot in fighting slavery in the fashion supply chain. And obviously that's a really important message, but the key, the magic that they have is that they can make that happen whilst making people feel empowered and like they're doing something beautiful. And that empowerment in beauty was what the brand I helped them make was all about. And so in other words, you can either have the first thing you say being very, very worthy, full of statistics, that kind of thing, or you can say, look at this beautiful world that we want to bring you into. And this kind of a world, which is beautiful and elegant and sophisticated, that's the same mindset that will finally solve the problem of slavery in fashion. You have to have a beautiful, sophisticated mindset to think that way too. So kind of making that kind of parallel. And the last thing I'll just say is, if you do, you know, small brands often think to themselves, well, it's all well and good for Nike to run this advert, but I can't do that. Well, actually you can. So if you look at the big brands who are probably much more evil than you guys all are, and look at what they do and the kind of narrative they put out there and the stories that they tell, you can also tell that kind of story and create that kind of message. If you get the right support to do it, you can tell those stories. So learn from all of those guys. Look at what the big brands, look at what the evil brands are doing, because they think about this stuff all the time. All they think about is how cool do we look? What emotion are we trying to capture? What aesthetic are we getting across? And they make their clothes in the worst factories possible and don't care about this at all. So steal from them, steal the right stuff from them, and let's beat them.
Woohoo! Yes. Okay. Great answer. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Pete.
Good, no problem.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. And I think we've got 5-10 minutes left or so. So if anyone else has any final questions, do let us know. But let's go on to Stevie, who has a question about standing out.
Hiya, cheers for the talk. So my brand is, we're trying to be affordable, sustainable wear made, sold and worn to help people rise out of homelessness. So we're creating a program here in Bristol to train and employ homeless people to make the clothes. And that's quite a big focus of the messaging. But obviously what you just said, you've said a lot of the times about maybe not focusing on the sustainability or the ethical nature. Do you think that's a strong enough message to focus on? Or do you think that would get lost within the rest of it?
So my advice to you is, I want to keep repeating, what I'm not saying is don't say that great stuff about yourselves. You do need to communicate that message, and it's a very unique message that you're talking about. What my main concern is making sure that the lens that this is going to be a mixed metaphor, the lens that you shine that through, I don't know, the way that you talk about it, the way you put that across has emotional appeal to people. So what I wouldn't advise you to do is, for example, just make a series of YouTube videos where you just interview the people who are making their clothes, tell me your story, you're just sitting them down in front of a wall and, you know, and that the story is going to be enough by itself. That won't do justice to their stories. What you want to be doing is thinking, okay, I'm not trying to guilt people into buying these clothes. I'm not trying to make people go, no one wakes up in the middle of the night going, oh, I must do something ethical tomorrow. But people do wake up going, oh, that pair of shoes I saw, I really want. Do you know what I mean? They have these sort of cravings. So you want to help people when they're looking at your content feel something like that. And I think that, it can be incredibly inspirational what you're talking about, and making people feel inspired and empowered through that is what you're talking about. Or the journey they're going on. I mean, this is an incredible journey. It's a transformational thing. It could be quite cinematic. It could be something that there are all sorts of ways of telling that. You could make it feel very creative, and you could do it through an animation or through a comic book or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways of doing it. If you can figure out what the emotion is that you want to convey, you can then say, look, we're not just going to post an article saying, look how great it was this happened. You're going to find a way of conveying it, which is inspirational, but points at this emotion. You could do it. Is it about confidence? Is it just about confidence? In which case, you want to be doing a photo shoot, like you don't want to make it look like a kind of a worthy kind of thing, which you're like I say, you never want to guilt people into it. You don't want to make it feel like you don't want to make it feel like a charity. You want to make it feel like an awesome creative thing that's happening. And, looking at different magazines and seeing how they do their photo shoots, like I'm obsessed about this one called Monocle. I don't know if you know that magazine. Gorgeous photo shoots where everything that's very kind of like this wonderful utopian world that people are building. And you just want to be part of it. And that's what you're doing. You are doing that. And you've got to do justice to the stories that you're telling. So for me, it's about saying, yes, we're going to tell that story. What's the emotional lens we want to put it through to make people feel really compelled? Who else has done something like this, which is great, and let's kind of steal the way that they've been doing it. One other example I'll just give you is Brewdog. You know Brewdog?
Yeah.
Those guys are amazing, and they actually don't do a lot of pure marketing. They do a lot more stuff where, for example, they'll post something saying, all right, we got fed up with the way the government was handling things, so we decided to do this. And then it has a picture of them just getting on and doing it. And just the attitude of it is just punchy, and it just gets you going, and it's not massively, it's not going to win any sort of Hollywood production the way they do any of the stuff necessarily, but that's not important. It's just the feeling that you get. It's just got that energy and that edge. So learning from those kinds of guys and saying, not necessarily just learning from them, but saying if they share the energy that you seem to have, just again, advanced common sense, dissecting what they're doing, how are they getting that edge, and just building a bit of that into what you're putting out there too. That's how I would be looking to do it. And then it will just give that story that you have, which is unique, the platform to make people go, not just good, that's a really good thing, to it's a good thing, and it's a thing which is just feels so cool that I want to be involved in it and take my money.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers.
Cool.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that. There's some really great questions in there. And yeah, if anyone conscious of time now, thank you so much everyone for joining us, and thank you so much, Pete, for your time and sharing so much knowledge with everyone. If anyone has any further questions or thoughts or ideas or anything that they would like to share with us or get involved in, then do feel free to shoot us over a message. I hope you guys have found this useful. I found it super interesting myself. So thank you everyone for joining us here today. And yeah, as I mentioned, we've got more kind of masterclasses, workshops and meetups coming up. So definitely keep an eye out for kind of all of our accelerator events and everything. But for now, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening. Let me leave you with one thing very, very quickly, which is just, I know it's really hard to give everybody specific advice on anything they're working on. In a session like this, I completely get that. But if I can just encourage everybody just to take that mindset of what is the emotional appeal of what I'm doing, and use that as the starting point, and just spend some time thinking about it, looking at what other people are doing, and just sort of gathering your thoughts like that. I think that'll be a really good starting point to help you get where you want to go.
Perfect, thank you. Such a good token of knowledge to end on. Yeah, thanks everyone. We'll hopefully see you at the next one.
Great, thank
Bye.
you. Great session. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye.